Alright guys, Jameson and Alex. Today we're going to be talking about the Wildkeeper Fighter from Warchief Gaming.
Yes.
Which is the brainchild of Chris Metzen, who is the primary creative director for creating World of Warcraft, Diablo, Starcraft, Overwatch, all those worlds.
Blizzard back before it was like Activision Blizzard, before it became like Microsoft's product, and back when it was just Blizzard Gaming, way back when.
So he got off, created his own company.
Yes.
And this is the first product that they made, is this source book / campaign setting in Auroboros. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. And there's 4 subclasses in this book, so we'll be going through all of those. Mm-hmm. And some interesting options for sure.
Yes.
Also today we have, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for the D&D Beyond Players Bundle. Coming up close on the next round of that. So make sure you get in on that. And of course, thank you to our sponsors, Hit Point Press.
Yes.
Today we are talking about the animated spell cards.
Nifty.
Which we got some sampled up. We did a video about them. They are so good.
Yeah, the detail in them, the designs, you can tell they put a lot of work into them. They're surprisingly thick, sturdy cards.
They're not actually like waterproof. Too.
Yeah, the material they're made of. They're not like these little plain card, kind of decent quality cardboard. Like, they are thick, durable. Like, they've got weight to them when you hold them, and I like that.
They're really cool reference cards, and it's like it'd make a good gift, I think, for anybody. So
yes, it would.
Check those out. All of that out of the way.
We'll jump
straight into it. If you're new to the channel or subclass series, we're going to go over the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate it based on its roleplay, combat, and overall class synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities.
That's right.
So, Alex, what do we get?
Okay. As I tend to do sometimes, we do these out-of-the-box things. It's Wildkeeper Fighter. So it's like Eldritch Knight Fighter, but for a druid.
Pretty much.
Fighter. Yeah, that. Okay, so, and this is an important way to start. You have spellcasting when you reach 3rd level, and you choose a subclass, druid spells, and see this, the good spell list, access to druid spells, all that kind of fun stuff. You actually do get 2 cantrips of your choice from the druid spell list, and get an additional druid cantrip of your choice at 13. So that's great. So you can always have some ranged options specifically. I think is, something that fighters normally, you're relying on, a bow, which, and you're, depending on how your DM works with swapping weapons in turn and still firing an arrow all in the same. Now you're like, oh, sword or whatever weapon. And they're like, okay, I'm not in range, so I can fire whatever cantrip I'd like to. You've got some extra options there. As far as your spellcasting modifier, it is going to be wisdom, which makes sense because you are using, druid-based magic, divine caster and all. Spell save DC is going to be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your wisdom modifier. Spell attack bonus and all that stuff's going to be the same, all based on your wisdom.
There is one caveat, which is the limitation of the schools of magic.
Yes, that's important.
So you can only choose from the evocation, conjuration, and transmutation spell list from the druid list. So there's really good options in those as well. And it is actually a good chunk of the druid spells are in those schools anyway, so it's not really going to hinder you all that much.
Right. But there is something to keep in mind that you are limited to those 3 schools of magic.
And also, you're kind of into that 3rd caster
you're not even a half caster, because you're going to cap out at 4th level spells.
1 4th level
and you're only going to get one of those at 18? 19, yeah.
19.
So really, I wouldn't even imagine you're going to see a 4th level spell at all. I wouldn't plan on that. I would think 1Z, 2Zs, eventually 3Zs. Yeah, for sure. A lot of this comes online early, because besides your spells starting to hit at level 3, getting cantrips, you're also going to have a handful of other abilities, starting with Totemic Bond. You can bond with an animal totem by performing a vision ritual. The ritual is completed by taking a long rest after consuming your druidic herb found in the starter gear. And I'm sure a ton of you will have an absolute blast with whatever your druidic herb is going to be, because it doesn't specify anywhere in there what it might be. So druidic herb. During the ritual, a totemic spirit animal of your choice appears in a vision, and you and an animal bond as one being. Upon awakening from the ritual, a body part of your choosing is replaced or augmented by a physical feature of your spirit animal. Example of this includes your feet become clothed with hooves, your hands but transform into talons or antlers sprouting from your forehead. I'm thinking crab claws. I want to go Dr. Zoidberg on somebody.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Going along with that, you have your totemic adaptation, which is the actual mechanical use of these things, which the Wildkeeper may make any attack with their totemic adaptation for 1d6 damage. Now, with that, there is a little side note on here that, with the designer's note, that it's intended to work with the DMs to understand whether or not the feature makes sense and how it would apply to combat. So the way that we interpret it here is when it says 1d6 damage, depending on what kind of feature you get, like for example, cloven hooves would be bludgeoning, your talons would be slashing, and your antlers would be piercing, because that's just how the kind of damage would be done. So depending on that, you can work with your DM to determine how that actually makes sense for the actual damage type.
Yes.
And with that, the die changes as you gain levels in the fighter, as shown in the Wildkeeper table, which starts at a d6, ends at a d12. It actually skips d10 in there. So it goes 1d6, then 1d8 at 8th, and then 1d12 at 14th level.
Interesting.
So there you go. And they count as magical for purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. So that is important.
At level 3, I mean, that's online early and already, okay? Because there are a few low-level CR stuff that don't have a ton of health, but do have like resistances and immunities and things like that to make them more interesting for lower CRs that you can kind of cheese around before some other people may be able to.
Right, for sure. Also, as we're still in this whole totemic thing here, is Totemic Strike. When you take the attack action with a weapon that isn't your totemic adaptation, you may immediately make another attack with your adaptation as a bonus action using the same modifier as the first attack. The caveat is you do not add the ability modifier to the damage. So it's kind of like two-weapon fighting where you attack with your offhand as a bonus action. But with this, it's not having to be a light weapon. And also, you can use a two-handed weapon for your main attack.
This is true.
Which, so that does make a difference as well. So if you attack with a great sword, for example, and you go whack whack early on, well, at level 3 it'd be whack, and then bonus action pierce them or pinch them or whatever. It's a bonus action, do some extra damage. So yeah, definitely some options on there, and that will change in the future, which we'll get to in a minute.
Next up, at 7, we have Feral Resistance. You gain an additional +2 to your armor class whenever an attack is made against you with advantage, specifically. Math tells us that advantage equates to essentially a +5 to hit. Right. So you're not fully negating advantage, but you are cutting into advantage's chance to hit just a little
40%
bit.
40% reduction.
Look at you. It's like he's good at math. Mm-hmm. Also at 10, we have Animalistic Fury. Starting at 10th level, your totemic adaptation gains +1 bonus to its attack and damage rolls.
Yes, so you get a little bit extra damage and a little bit extra chance to hit. But where it actually starts getting interesting is with Totemic Surge, which is also at level 10.
Yes.
You can draw upon your totemic power to perform superhuman feats. Once per long rest, as a bonus action, you can gain one of the following benefits. It does not increase the maximum ability score.
That's important.
That is very important.
And that should tell you where we're going to go with this.
So one is increase your dexterity by 4 and double your movement speed for 1 minute. Increase your strength by 4 and double your proficiency bonus when making strength checks for 1 minute. Or increase your wisdom by 4 for 1 minute and regain your highest level spell slot. So some options on there depending on circumstances and what you're trying to get in the moment. And utility, always good.
Yes, I just hear regaining highest level spell slot just scream at me. But
sure, why not?
At 15, we have Warden of the Wilds. You become a master at traversing the wilds as well as the cityscapes. You gain the following bonuses. You can move through difficult terrain unimpeded at full speed. You can move stealthily at a normal pace. And when making attacks with your totemic adaptation, you have advantage.
Yes.
All the time.
That's when it gets
really
good.
Kind of buried the lead a little bit on that last one. You're thinking, okay, there's going to be some movement stuff and stealthy stuff. Cool. Oh, wait a minute. What?
Yes. So at this point, level 15, you have your D12.
Yep.
And this is probably when you forego your bonus action attack because you get advantage.
Yeah.
So you would get advantage with all of your attacks as a fighter, but you can't do your bonus action offhand attack. Because you're using your totemic adaptation.
Yeah.
So you're foregoing that for advantage, which is, okay.
Yeah, fine.
Sure, it's probably
as many attacks as you get as a fighter, you don't care anywhere.
Exactly.
That's right.
And then lastly, we have Alpha's Essence at level 18. You're able to project the savage essence of your animal totem once per long rest. As an action for the next minute, all creatures are frightened while within 10 feet of you unless they succeed a wisdom save. Any beast that resembles your respective totem, avians, predators, marine animals, etc., within 30 feet must follow any command you give unless it succeeds a wisdom save equal to your modifier.
Yep.
So, you kind of get a little bit of Ace Ventura slash, Aquaman deal kind of going on here.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So, yeah. Wildkeeper.
Yes.
So, all that being said,
we did the thing.
Let's
He's going to do the thing.
Into.
That's right.
The rating portion of the video. First up is the roleplay value asterisk. As always, when talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background that's on you as a player. Can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those role-play scenarios. Whew. So, looking at the abilities on here, we have a good mix of environmental RP spells from the Druid spell list, especially in Conjuration and Transmutation schools. You get a nice variety with those. You get some niche use with the Augmented Body. If you know you're going to be interacting with like some fish people or something, you could change to get some scaly bits or something. You know, you could do something
maybe
weird.
fit in a little bit better.
Yeah. So there's some very niche stuff on there depending on circumstances. So there's that. There's also the Totemic Surge, which is niche because it is once a day, and I'm not sure how much you're going to really be wanting to use a one-a-day ability in RP. And it's a little risky to do that sometimes. Yep. So I would throw that in the niche category for that. Mm-hmm. And then the normal speed at stealth is nice, but how often are you going to be stealthing? So it kind of falls in the niche category as well. And then the capstone, again, you can use it in RP. It's probably going to be more of a combat thing, so it falls again into the niche. So you have a bunch of niche options on here for very specific circumstances that probably aren't going to come up all that much, and you have limited spells. So those RP spells aren't going to be that impactful because of your limitation with spell slots. So we just gave it a 2.5 in the RP department. You have lots of options, but they're very situational and they're limited as well.
Yep. On the combat side of things, where clearly there is a heavier focus. I mean, it's a fighter first of all, so it's in the word. It's not it doesn't say role player. The name of the class is not that. It's fighter. Of course, getting access to spells definitely creates an interesting opportunity, especially being a druid spell list. So there's some different types of CCs and ground manipulation stuff.
Yep. With
some healing, yes. Messing around with the environment that you wouldn't normally have access to, like from Eldritch Knight Fighter having the wizard spell list. You're definitely more prone to interact with nature and such. Yes. But the cantrips thing, I think, is even more impactful than you might think it would be, because again, it gives you range damage options that aren't just an arrow or a javelin throw that normally most martial classes don't have access to. So that's a fantastic option to give you some reliable, base, elementals, slash spell damage to work around. Your totemic bond, the fact that you can change it based on what you need, both for flavor of combat and, if you're allowed to be kind of creative with stuff, maybe you could attempt to, if you do like a crab claw, maybe you could use your action to grapple with the claw for your attack kind of thing. There's some cool things you can do with that, obviously. And then it's going to give you an extra attack, bonus, like Jameson said, really officially kind of a 2-weapon fighting situation where you're going to get a bonus action attack, which does scale up in damage. Right. But I think kind of the maybe drawback here is it's a little bit kind of a slow going early on, kind of struggles out of the gate a little bit because you're getting that offhand attack essentially. Right. But
that's really it.
That's really it.
Otherwise we just have a weapon to attack with, so it's not that much.
Yeah. And
besides the magic resistance.
Yeah, besides that part, yes. And you're not getting your damage modifier again, so that part's all normal. But that damage does scale, and it's going to cap out at a D12. Feral resistance, that +2 to AC, like I said earlier, it's not really fully on negating advantage, and how often are you going to be hitting with advantage? Right. Hopefully not a ton. Yeah. Because you'd rather off not be hit with advantage and not to trigger that ability, but it's good that it's there. Yes. Again, 10, you're getting bonus to your totemic adaptation, and then we get into the final three steps, which especially Totemic Surge and Ward of the Wild, which kick you up a whole nother pay grade with being able to, not permanently, but increase a stat, by 4. That doesn't increase your maximum. It increases your maximum. Oh, boy. But you can choose between Dex, Strength, or Wisdom based on what you're needing in the situation, and you're getting an extra effect. Because if your Strength's already capped, you're hitting with your Strength, getting that extra spell slot back, and then also increasing your spell save DC is part of that. Your spell attack chance during that window also is fantastic. Anytime you're able to gain a spell slot back is great, but when you're really limited to the number of spell slots you have, it becomes more and more impactful, like, Warlocks come to mind. And then War in the Wild, you're getting some extra movement speed, moving stealthily, which, really going to happen in combat a ton, but still, it's there if you needed it. But most importantly, that totemic adaptation with advantage.
Yeah, that's huge.
Where it's, like James said earlier, it's probably really going to, at that point, you're replacing your regular weapon attack. Yeah. Just be beating people with whatever druidy animal bit you're going to have at the time. Because you're going to get to hit all those attacks with advantage, even if you're not getting that bonus attack that you normally would be.
Right. You are getting the +1 effect to it, and you're getting advantage.
And you're getting advantage on all those attacks. So advantage on,
with a D12, mind you.
Eventually, you're going to have advantage on 4 attacks with a D12 each time. Yeah. And then, of course, the Alpha's Essence, if you have a great opportunity to use that, it's going to be kind of campaign/DM, depending on how available that's going to be. But it can be, it could be a lifesaver if you're in trouble, and you got all of a sudden there's a bunch of birds around here, and you're like, all right, even if they're all CR quarters, they can get in there and be annoying, draw fire, draw some attention, do something to help out, or whatever else. So, a lot of talking for a 4 out of a possible 5, and really the only thing holding it back is really just a slower start.
Right.
But the hitting the 7 through 15 window, you definitely take up like dramatic steps forward at 10, especially at 10 and 15.
Right. I just think having advantage on every attack as a fighter is super impactful.
Yep. It's one of those things that's not necessarily exciting, but oh boy.
Yeah, especially if you go action surge, then you're just, crazy.
Just smacking somebody around. That's what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
But instead of doing it with a sword or a big hammer, you're going to be doing it with pick an animal part. I don't know.
That could get real weird.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And some of you are going to be really weird. I know you people.
Yeah.
God.
Well, anyways, that brings us on to overall class synergy. And going with the fighter, I mean, you have stuff like your action surge, which pretty much synergizes with everything.
Yes, because it's action surge.
Then you have, Indomitable. You have your second wind, stuff like that, which is typically not really synergized with much.
Yep.
So coming back to that, there's always attacking.
Yes.
And this has some good stuff for your attacking because you're a fighter.
Yes.
You do have your spell slots, which give you some extra utility as well, especially for some CC utility, which as a fighter can be really beneficial to help you get to things, especially with your adaptation.
Yes.
So that is really good. And then, as we've said multiple times already, advantage on all attacks is really good. And the huge stat bump that you can get if you really just want to increase your spell save by 2 and gain back a spell slot to really try to help something stick. Hey, I mean, I'll take it anyway.
Yeah, I ain't going to complain about it. If that was the only choice you got.
Even just doubling your movement speed can
wouldn't
really
be
make
bad.
a difference.
Yeah.
So, having the ability to do that is good, but at the same time, there's lots of limitations on those things.
Yep,
so we went with a 3.5. So you have some synergy on here, but all of it is quite limited, and then the attacking bonuses are level 15. So they're pretty far down the line there for that. But that's going to be it for the Wildkeeper Fighter. We have 3 more subclasses to go in Auroboros, so stay tuned for those. Thank you again to our sponsors, Hit Point Press, and their animated spell cards. Make sure you check them out. They're super cool. Lots of cool graphics and great gifts to be given. So, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when our new videos are coming out. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.